Good evening, everybody. Rabaz, I think we're live tonight. Just want to just say good evening to everybody. Thank you all so much for tuning in on this evening. Brother Basilis, we are in your hands.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for tuning in to our Black History series of interviews that we're doing. And it's been a superb and awesome times up to this point. We have an outstanding woman today that we'll be interviewing. And she's by the way of Selma, man. I can't wait to hear her story and hear how Selma has spread her life and just will help her spread her wings and build an awesome life that she has. Guys, make sure that you share. Make sure if someone needs to watch it, we're on Omega Chi 1957 on YouTube, Omega Chi Chapter Omega Sci-Fi on Facebook, and on the 7th District for the Bros, Big Roo. But I'm turning that back over to my counterpart, brother Collins Federated III.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Brother Basilis. I'm excited for us to have tonight Dr. Denisha Hendricks. She's Dr. Hendricks. She's cuz, she's family, she's everything to me. And I'm just even excited to have her just in this capacity as well. And so, first of all, good evening to you, Dr. Hendricks.
Good
Good evening. Good
evening.
evening.
Good
And,
evening.
of course, just thank you so much just for being with us on today. Just kind of getting started a little bit because I know there's a lot that we want you to dive into. So, just can you just tell us just a little bit for the people who don't know? Just tell us a little about who you are and as far as what are you doing right now, and then we'll sort of kind of get into other things as well.
Sure. And thank you so much. This is an awesome opportunity to share just a few things about myself and maybe a few people that I've helped along the way, because that's what it's all about. I will tell you, born in Birmingham, so I'm not a true Selma native. However, my family is from Selma. My mother grew up here in Selma, was born and raised here in Selma. So quite naturally, when it time I spent a lot of time here because my grandmother was here and much of my family on my mom's side. So I spent a lot of time growing up here in Selma. And actually, we moved here when I was 4 years old, and spent a little time here as my mom came back to be I believe, the director of nursing at Good Samaritan before it closed. So this was 1982, 83, right around that time. And so I had a little bit of Selma in that perspective, but I went on and to Auburn High and on to University of South Carolina to be an athletic training major, physical education, athletic training, and then back to Auburn, came back home for graduate school, my master's and doctorate in higher ed administration from Auburn, and finished at the age of 25. And went on to a career on academia in the higher ed, student affairs, athletic administration, being an athletic director, to now I'm currently doing a couple of things. One, working as the senior associate with Beverly and Associates, and we are, if not the only, one of the only higher education and athletic administration firms, consulting firms in the country owned by an African American female. So I am really excited to continue the work. I think this is now year 5 with that firm. So we're certainly excited about that. And then also with my own consulting firm, serving as the chief operating officer. But let me back up. With Beverly and Associates, we also serve as the diversity advisory team for the Jorgensen Learning Group, which is a long history within corporate America and higher education, as well as K-12. So we're excited to serve as their diversity advisory team.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Listen, I love the fact that there's so much that you bring to the table, and just to kind of dig into it a little bit, I want us to sort of kind of get into the early days. I know you said you spent a lot of time in Selma, you spent a lot of time growing up. Can you sort of kind of talk about that time growing up and sort of what motivated you to step into this field of athletics and everything that you're doing?
Yeah, I can tell you the first basketball game I remember going to was at Selma University. That's the very first basketball game that I remember going to. And when we were back here, and I remember the ball coming up in the stands, and my mom was saying, "Hit the ball, get it out the way," but it would have hit me. But so I learned how to hit the ball, to move out the way of the ball real fast at that game. But that my mother is a sports person. My grandmother was into sports, so we grew up going to the classics. My grandmother is a graduate of Alabama State. And many of the family members, we had Tuskegee family members, Alabama State family members, but you know, if we were going with Geneva Smith, we were sitting on the Alabama State side. And when my mom started working at Tuskegee and she got tickets on the Tuskegee side, you know, there was some issues there. But that's really when you talk about what you do, you know, Alabama, this is football country, as we say. This is what we do. So what you do on Friday night, you go to the football game, high school game. What you do on Saturday, you go to the college games. So growing up between Selma, Tuskegee, and Auburn, sports was a big part of my life. And I also healthcare, by my mom being a nurse. There are a lot of nurses in the family, and there are a lot of teachers in the family. As a fourth generation educator on both sides of my family. My dad is now retired, but he was a band director. So even when I went to Birmingham after my parents divorced, even when I went to Birmingham, I was still around sports because I was either in the parade or at the game or what have you with my father, just on the band side. So one thing about it, that's what we do. So in high school, Auburn High, I was in the band, but football game Friday night, football game on campus at Auburn on Saturday, or going down to Tuskegee or what have you. That's just what we do. And I wanted to find a way to merge the love of sports and the love of education and the love of healthcare. And how did I do that? And which is why I wound up being an athletic training major. But Selma had a very big part to do with that in having an avenue for me to see college sports at that level at such a young age.
I'm talking and I'm realize I'm muted. That's awesome. I definitely resonate with, you know, Alabama being such a big football state.
Mhm.
You know, even I'm a graduate of Alabama A&M, but before I went to A&M, I was going to the Auburn games.
Mhm.
Brother Marshall is actually an Alabama fan, and so you know, there's always some fun rivalry.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh
You know,
yes.
just in there. And so I love how you were able to sort of kind of curate the loves that you and their interest into something to make it work. I think that is you know, that is definitely amazing. I'm a brother Bozes, I want to go ahead and throw it over to you if you want to jump in here for a minute. Keep me from having to run my mouth all night. I will.
Jess, I got you, man. I got you. I promise we got you, man. Just knowing that, you know, you're in a man-driven field, you know, when you think about athletic directors, even coaching, you know, even looking at the world we're living in today, we have women referees, we have women NBA coaches, women NFL coaches. So women are breaking barriers daily. And just what are some of the barriers you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Wow, I tell you, and you're right. It is still very much a male-dominated field. And today, I'm so excited when you look at the numbers of female athletic directors today. And then you talk about African American female athletic directors today,
There you
because
go.
when I started as an AD, my first AD job was at Kentucky State University, and I was 30 years old. And as an AD at Kentucky State, and at that time, I think there may have been maybe 12, maybe 15. One time I think we went down to 10 or 9, and then, you know, we moved back up, but it vacillated between 10 and 15, you know, during that time frame. So that's not a lot of people. So you talk about a small sorority of people, different type of sorority. That's a small sister circle. So many of us who were ADs at that time, we know each other very well because there was just not a lot of us. So overcoming barriers, there were barriers on your campus, there were barriers in the community, there were barriers, you know, even as you moved into the conference. And one thing about the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the SIAC, there have been female athletic directors in that conference for many years. There are many women who've served in that conference at various institutions, Fort Valley and a number of institutions in that conference. So, and it is the oldest African-American conference for HBCUs. So that in and of itself was awesome to be. But even still, when I was there, there were two of us. And then it was just me. So we were outnumbered. And so having to navigate that world just in an everyday life. And yes, did football report to me? Yes, they did. Was that an issue for a lot of people? Yes, it was. And then you move. I wanted to move up in the NCAA governance structure, and so to do that, you apply to be on committees within the governance structure. And I saw something recently that I said a few years ago here in Selma with National Council of Negro Women. One of their functions that they had, and I really had forgotten about this story, and it puts in perspective the kind of things that on an everyday basis as an African American, where you're outnumbered in terms of race, outnumbered in terms of gender, and then I would dare say even outnumbered because I was an African American female and a Southerner, a true Southerner, and that in and of itself can be another factor. And I remember them at the time we were looking at changing the academic requirements for student athletes to be eligible, initial eligibility from high school into college. And the NCAA research staff, they had all these models and all these things we had to look at. And I said, okay, good thing I had that doctorate degree. So I understood what they were saying. So, nobody had to explain anything to me. I got it. And they had a scatter plot, and it had these little red boxes. And the scatter plot represented each one of the student athletes in Division II, because Kentucky State is an NCAA Division II institution. And they kept saying, if we use this model, then these students wouldn't be eligible. Then if we use this model, then a bigger group of students wouldn't be eligible. Well, I simply asked the question, who are these people that we would be Xing out of our institutions, and they would no longer have access to our institutions? And that question, I didn't know it would stir up a lot, but it did. And we had a person who was a faculty member at another institution say, well, what does it matter? We want high quality students. And don't you want to go on record as saying academics is number one at our institutions? And I said, oh, sure, absolutely. I want to go on record as saying that. I said, but my fear is that the people inside these squares look like me. And they're from where I'm from. And this gentleman's particular institution was one of the top schools at the time, and they were winning championships in all types of sports. And I said, but, I'm at a historically Black college or university. I said, but your football team looks a whole lot like mine. And your basketball team looks a whole lot like my basketball team. And your track team looks a lot like my track team. So I'm trying to figure out, what are you going to do when the people who are winning for you look just like me, and you won't be able to get those folks in your institution? So, quite naturally, dinner was a little tense that night, because to them at the time, I had become the angry Black woman in the room. That's what they say. Anytime you ask a question and you stand up for yourself, oh, now you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm simply stating a fact. And the next day, the NCAA staff came back in, and I was right. The folks that we would have X'd out were people who looked like me. Many of them were from smaller communities, and many of them were the students who were in the South. Well, now I have a problem with models 1 through 10, or whatever the number was at the time. And so quite naturally, we didn't use any of those and pick something that was much better and that worked for me and that I could deal with, that only X'd out a much smaller percentage of African Americans, and especially African American males. And so when I look at students who sign scholarships today and have for a number of years, And I wonder, especially when they go to Division II schools, and I always think about the fact that, is that a student that would not have been eligible if I had not raised that question in the room? And so when you talk about barriers, you have to not be afraid to ask a question, to speak your mind, and understand that when you do it, you're going to catch some heat for it. But you have to be willing and able to handle. Talk about, can you stand the, if you can't stand the fire, the heat, get out of the kitchen. And that's true. If you can't stand that, then that's not the place for you. Being in a male dominated area, and that happens to people who are in business and corporate America. It's the same kind of thing, but it certainly manifested itself in that particular situation. And there are so many things that I could talk about, even when it came to hiring coaches or people. And I would say you have to relieve someone of their duties. And I would always say some people do things and they would give their jobs back to the state of Kentucky or the Illinois, Commonwealth of Kentucky, or the state of Illinois, or what have you. And it's a hard part of the job, but it had to be done.
I just want to know how were you able to even keep your cool? When you ran up against that, you know what I mean? And it's hard.
It's hard.
I talk about this with my sister a lot because it's hard to not be conceived as the angry Black woman. And especially in that type of field. Unfortunately, men, when it comes to athletics, men do have a privilege where they can we can act how we want to act, but women aren't allowed to do that. It's almost like it's foreign. And so, listen, I applaud you for even being able to keep your cool.
Right.
Oh yeah, because I wanted to, act like I was from the southwest side of Birmingham, but I couldn't do that, by way of Selma, by way of Tuskegee, by way of Auburn, that's what I wanted to do. But that doesn't work. And you have to know your audience and understand what was going to work in that situation, because all I wanted to do was to make sure that we did not X out. Primarily, they were going to be African-American men. And I did not want, that was not going to happen, not on my watch. And they weren't going to look back and look at the committee makeup in 2010 or 2011, whenever that happened, and say, well, these were the people that were on the committee at the time. And my name wasn't going to be associated with that. And so I had to really, one of my mentors who's gone on now, one of our past grands, Barbara Moore, and she was our 22nd international president of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And she would always say, okay, now let's get calm. And let's get calm. And so I would always hear her. And I do now. And Zetas would tell you, they'll say, oh, now Denisha's the one said, now let's get calm. So now I feel like that's my duty to say that. So I had to get calm so I can think. As long as I stay calm, I can outthink most people. But I have to stay calm. Because if I allow you to get me on 10, and I've seen me real mad one time and I scared myself. So I try not to do that.
I think we can all relate to that. Like,
I scared myself. Oh no. I try my best not to allow myself to go there so that I can stay calm and think through whatever it is. Now, when it's over, I'm probably like, oh my God, can you believe it? Da, 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 da. I'm probably all like that. But when it's over, and you've dealt with it, and it's done. We had a student that was shot, not killed, but shot at Kentucky State. We didn't know who shot him. He was on the men's basketball team.
Wow.
There I go, 4:00 in the morning. My head coach calls and says, Doc, so-and-so got shot. Oh God. Okay. Where are you? I'm at the hospital. Okay. Where's his mother? We can't find her. Oh Lord. Okay. I'm on my way. So here I go to the hospital and I have to tell the doctor, well, look, until his mother gets here, I'm the mama. This is the daddy, the head coach. So you have to talk to us. So we're going to deal with this. But we didn't know who shot him. And we started to put events together that led up to that. And realized that there was a target on our men's basketball student athletes. someone had gotten into a fight, and we had something else. Somebody got accosted at the gas station. So here we are investigating, like, but we're investigating because we're trying to figure it out because we have a game the next day. We don't know who shot him. We don't understand what's going on. We don't want somebody to show up in the gym to try to finish the job. Herein lies the issue. So, you get him straight. Luckily, he has no damage. Blessed young man. All is well. But, we do figure out who shot him. But before we actually figured it out, we had a game. So now I've got to get metal detectors. I've got to have the students come in a different way. I've got to get people searched. I've got all these things happen. I don't think I slept for 72 hours. Once I woke up, so-and-so got shot. And by the time, I finally laid my head down on Saturday, I was exhausted. I was totally exhausted.
I know that feeling too well.
Yeah,
I was about to say, bro, Marsh, you could probably identify, especially when you're coaching kids of color and they deal with so many things outside of the gym to try to keep it.
It's amazing. I was exhausted. Several things happened. One, when the mother showed up, when she finally got there, and she only lived about 70 miles away. So when she finally gets there the next day,
only 70 miles away.
we have, we just had this issue. He doesn't go home with her. She has a problem with it. Then he tells me that he had never heard his mother tell him that she loved him.
Wow.
So you're dealing with trauma.
Well, I'm big on family. Where I was the AD, we're going to be a family. You got different parts of this family, but we're going to be a family. This is what we are. You're going to know we're going to give you tough love, and we're going to show it. We're going to say it, and we're going to show it. So I was big on telling the students that I loved them. If nobody else told them, I was going to tell them, and I wanted to make sure our coaches did the same thing. Had no idea. This boy fell on me and cried because I said it, but his mama didn't say it. So we had that came out. Several things came out that in those few days that really helped me understand when you talk about the impact that you make and you don't realize it because you're just doing what you feel is right and treating students how you would want somebody. And I don't have any children of my own, but I was treating them how I wanted someone to treat my children if they were in their care. And so it's amazing to me, all of the things that people bring with them, when they come to school. And I know you deal with it, you talk about dealing with, kids in K-12, high school or whatever. And when they come to college, they're from all over and they're bringing it from all over. And now we have to somehow figure out how to get these people to work together to, one, we want them to graduate, but we're also trying to win all at the same time. It's all kinds of things. Yeah.
I can believe that. And just knowing that, and I can only imagine personally just the male ego, having to fire a male, having to work with the males, and they have to take your, advice and role, and may not be what they want, but I can only imagine how that was. But if you stayed calm, I know you did a job well done. So I know that was super
stay calm and get real articulate, and that because I'm trying to stay calm.
I got you. Well, on the recent interview, we spoke with a very particular person that you may know. We spoke with a very particular person you may know, and it was your mom. And man, I continue to say she gave an interview that left some people in tears. I got phone calls, I got texts just saying how blessed that interview blessed their soul. So as a person who's not kin to her, she actually did so much for me as a history teacher, as a Black man, just knowing how much we have to go, but knowing where we came from. But I can only imagine how influential she was on your life as being your child. So how was that?
Yeah, hard. To the point where I remind her sometimes, Mama, everybody didn't grow up in your house now, so you trying to, hold some folks to standards they don't know anything about. I'm being funny when I say that. However, what I had to realize is that my normal is not everyone's normal. And so I can't always approach things in understanding that people have no idea of what it is to have a parent, let alone two parents that were educators, that I saw go back to school and get their masters. I saw my mom go back to school and get her doctorate. And most people never get to see that. And to be a fourth generation college graduate on both sides of my family, to be a fourth generation teacher, educator, and even though I took it in a different direction than what other folks had done in either on either side of my family, that in and of itself, most people never they have no idea of what it's like to come to Thanksgiving dinner and it's quite normal to sit there with the mayor because that's your cousin, or the DA because that's your cousin, or the city council person because that's your cousin, or the tax assessor for Jefferson County is my cousin. The president of Birmingham City Board of Education is my cousin. All those kinds of things. And that's normal. That's our everyday life. And the average person just has no idea that is the of what that's like. And I had to really understand that the examples that I had that were, even though I may not have had Black teachers, once I got past elementary school, I really didn't have any more Black teachers, but I didn't miss anything because of family and church. So it's really it's really amazing when you talk about the examples that you have, and you don't have to go outside of your own home to know what it's like to be a leader. There's nothing, and there's some things I think that we, and Collins, I say we because it's me and you and a lot of other people on our line. There's some things that we do that we naturally do. We can't help it. It's just in us. And when we go in other environments and people see it and they go, man, there's something different about you. And we go, oh yeah, I'm just me. This is just what we do, because it is just what we do. And it's really amazing to me. The older I get, the more I realize how blessed we are to be able to have the people, the folks who paved the way, our great grandparents and grandparents, and those folks who paved the way for us, so that it is very normal for us to go to college. That's a normal thing. Nobody in our family is asking anybody if they're going. It's just, baby, where you going and what's your major? What you gonna major in? It was never an if. It was always a where. But that's not the case for everybody. And to really understand the difference in that is really, it's amazing. And I'm thankful and grateful to have had examples of my mom, my dad, my grandmothers, my grandfathers, and having known several of my great grandparents, and they were educators. It just is in us. It's in the blood, no matter how much we try to get away from it. And I did try not to become a teacher, but what did I do? I became a teacher.
What's funny is I'm not a teacher, but I have this teacher spirit when I tell
You do.
and I break stuff down and when I talk about it. And maybe it's because I'm just always around, like I'm always around teachers.
It's how they talk to us growing up. They talk. I'm serious. If you think about it, think about the conversations that we had as children.
Absolutely. But yes. I think that standard, that standard of excellence is, and that's just, I think that's just because of what our family, our grandparents, they worked so hard,
They did.
to try to make sure we had things, and they fought. And that's a Selma legacy that I know I'm always proud of
Hmm.
when I go places. I've been in New York, I've been to California, I've been down in the Caribbean. When I go places, there's always just this air from Selma that I have no problem carrying with me. Um,
Hmm.
I know for you, you growing up in Tuskegee, Auburn, and you got Selma connections. So my question for you now is, what does that mean when you are now elevated into these spaces that you represent, places such as Selma and Tuskegee and Auburn? What does that mean for you?
It means a lot. It's a good, I don't even want to call it a burden, but it's just a good thing to carry because it's really not a burden.
Right.
However, I don't see it as a burden. However, you do have a responsibility. And the responsibility is to make sure that people understand that folks from Alabama can speak in complete sentences. And I do remember the teacher, I think my mom talked about the substitute teacher that asked me if Alabama had paved roads. I remember that very well. And if my mom had me and she was in high school, and if my daddy was strung out on drugs, and I mean, just ridiculousness. And but there's a responsibility that you carry with you wherever you go, and in all kinds of settings and in all kinds of organizations, that to be sure that not only are you representing yourself, but there's the family. And for me, that's the Smith family, the Isaac family, the Hendricks family, the Glover family. It's the family. Whatever that is, you represent your family, and you represent where you're from, and the schools that you went to, that you attended, you know, because that you could be the only person that somebody meets that's ever walked across the bridge, that's ever walked in Selma, that's ever been on Tuskegee's campus, who really understands George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington and all of these things. I was in a very recent conversation, and the people were talking about having Black history in their curriculum. And I just made mention about a Black man inventing the traffic light, and the grown people in the room didn't know that. And I said, well, my goodness, this is like Black History 101. But we take for granted, I think, many of the things here, being especially in Selma, Birmingham, we take for granted the things that we know because we live it, breathe it. We know people who were there, our families were there. These are regular conversations that we've had. And I think we take that for granted, that other people in other places have no idea. And so, yes, there is a responsibility also to educate, to be sure that people know and understand the things that we see and know and have known all the time. Because your grandmother was at the hospital taking care of people on Bloody Sunday. My granddaddy was driving the hearse, getting people to take care of. My other, great aunts and uncles were bodyguards for Reverend Shuttlesworth, and they were picking people up, and they were, involved. The youngest person who in the children's march in Birmingham, the youngest person who was arrested was my cousin, Audrey Faye Hendricks. That, but that was normal. That's normal conversation in our family. But people take those things for granted. And I think when we go places, we have to talk about remembering who you are, and understand that you walk in that, and you take all of these people, you take them with you in every room and every space that you enter. And so I wear it as a badge of honor. And people might say I might be a little conceited, but I just think I'm pretty confident.
You just said something that it's really resonating with me right now. Which is always affirmed to me, because I had just, I just said that I have this air from Selma, and what you just said sort of kind of maybe explained it, where we just have to be reminded that we are the Edmund Pettus Bridge that sometimes people may never see.
That's correct.
That that's heavy almost.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
right, it's not it's not necessarily a burden, but I
It's
do think
not.
it's something that we carry.
It is.
And it's not just for people who were born in Selma. Brother Marshall wasn't born in Selma, but he's lived in
And
Selma.
neither was I.
Right.
But yeah.
You understand
Mm-hmm.
history of Selma. You understand
Mm-hmm.
what comes with that. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about that, when it comes to the bridge and representation, and how we represent Selma, which is so we have to be proud of that. And maybe
Yes.
that's why I'm always protective about it. I used to be in college about to fight people for talking about Selma. Like, you're not about to talk about my city.
So what we're not going to do.
You just ain't finna talk about Selma. Like, that's just what it was.
I
Oh,
get
man.
it. I get it. I get it. But it is. And most people never know. I spent 2 years in New Hampshire, and while and I was in Keene, New Hampshire. And Keene, New Hampshire, what's the pastor's name who was killed here? He was from Keene, New Hampshire. Oh,
White guy?
I can't remember his name,
White
but he
guy?
was a white pastor.
Oh, Jonathan Daniels?
Jonathan Daniels. Jonathan Daniels was from, and I was in Keene. That's where I was for 2 years. And so people talk about him, and he went to this place in Selma, and they're so proud of that. And then here I come and saying, well, yeah, I know Selma very well. And and then I start talking about the things that our family did in the movement, and they go, oh, well, we didn't know that, because they only know about Jonathan Daniels. And there's so many other things that people just don't know. Because if you watch the movie Selma, that only told you a small portion, a very small portion. It was good,
Mhm.
and it was good that that story was told, but it wasn't the whole story.
That's right.
And there's so many people that we know, that we could make a whole series of movies. We could have, 1, 2, 3. There could be all types of sequels. And
It'd be like the Roots.
I mean, really,
Right.
it
Right.
really could be, if you took the different families, of the movement that were kind of those signature families at the time. We would have all kinds of things going on, and it could be done. Now, I'm not a playwright. I don't do that. I have ideas about things, but I just know it could be done. It could be
Well,
done.
that's
But people don't know. They don't know. New Hampshire, they were like, oh my God, is the bridge still there? Yeah, where is it going? Where is it going?
man.
And when the lady called my student, she called them colored. I really almost lost it.
Colored.
She said the colored students. I said the colored students. I said, is it 1953 and y'all
The
forgot to
crayons.
tell me? I said, did somebody forget to tell me it was no longer 1953? No, ma'am. Let me tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to do this. And let me tell you why. We're not going to do this. So, yeah, she called them colored. She did. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy times. That's definitely something to hear. Like color, and I think about colors, I'd be like, there's a lot of crayons out here. When you think about colored, I don't think of myself as colored. I think of myself as a black man who's great.
Yeah.
Colored.
This was 2018.
White and colored.
This was 2018 now. 2018.
Wow.
And she said it in a meeting, which meant she was comfortable with that.
But those are taught skills. There's something that you're not born with. Hatred is something that is taught. Not it's not in your DNA. It's not. Is something that someone gave you. And
That's correct.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I said the civil rights movement was yesterday. They'd be like, "What?" I was like, "The civil rights movement was yesterday." They're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "The children that parents were in the KKK ain't nothing but 50 years old. Ain't never 50, 60 years old. Literally, if you count the dates, the people that were 10, they're 60. The people that were 20, they're 70. They're still here. So,
and they're still recruiting. It's not over.
This is it's more recent than what people think. People
It's
think this
Yeah,
not
is
it's more
over.
recent. It's right there.
a long
I mean,
time ago.
while I was in Kentucky, their recruiting materials were being, put in neighborhoods. I left Kentucky in 2014. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not over.
Slavery
Far.
has only been gone. Slavery has only been outlawed less than 200 years out of the 400 year that this country has been in inception. So everything
Exactly.
is still fresh, and I don't think people realize that it's
Texas was
still
1970. Texas
Right.
was
So
1970.
it's
There were people still in
it's
slavery in 1970.
it's
fresh.
not over. And when you think about all people bring all of that with them,
Ooh.
and you have to deal with that, and be able, especially when you are a leader of people from different places, different spaces, different age groups. And you have to be able to, one, take the time to understand what we just said,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to be able to figure out how can you get all of these people who are bringing all of these things from all these different places, because there's some goal that we're trying to get to, in terms of a job or even in terms of organizations, whatever that goal is, and be able to figure that out. And there's an art and science to that. That's an art and a science. It's not it's not a one, it's not a one and done, type of thing. And you can read as many books as you want to, but if you don't understand how to really understand people and what they're bringing with them when they show up to you, then you won't understand how to reach them
Gotcha.
and be able to lead
Most
them.
definitely.
Because it's not about managing. You manage things. You lead people.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, you
I
manage
like that.
things. You manage
like that.
things, and things are like, processes,
Ooh.
procedures, things. You
Like
manage
that. You
things.
manage things.
But if you have to
Lead people.
start managing a person, we have issues. We got issues. If I got to start managing a person, then I'm spending way too much time on that person. There's something wrong.
Yeah, right.
So we have to make some different decisions. But you lead people, you manage processes and procedures, things. Yeah.
Well said.
Well, man, we've come to the portion where we have pretty much finished up what we're doing, and man, you hit man. That last point, man, is sitting on me, man. That last point you just made is sitting on me, man. If I gotta manage you, man, that's a problem. You
It's
manage
wrong.
things and you lead people, man. I think I'm gonna put it in my back pocket. But we definitely thank you for your time. We thank for the people that tuned in. Continue being a beacon of light for young women who also are aspiring to be in the seats such that you have held. Women are making great strides, and it's African Americans have made a great stride. Then you look at the man, then you look at the woman. Women are topping mountains, man. They topping mountains every day. It's a new barrier being broke. I think later on this week or today, Serena Williams and another young African American lady battle to go to the finals, and that's just good for our culture because tennis is a black driven sport. It's been dominated lately by African American women, but when you go back in time and when you look at the foundation, it's not built for us. When you look at golf, it wasn't built for us. We break every barrier wall they put down in front of us, and you broke down plenty. And we definitely thank you for doing that and keep striving. And any way we can help you, we might need a bodyguard. You might, about 6'5". I'll pull up and I'll get some order for you.
And I'm used to that because my coaches were really good about that. They were really, really good about that. They didn't let anybody bother me. And that's great. But yeah, I hope young women will take that. And if I've done anything to help and said anything to help someone, then it's all been well worth it.
Yes, man. We appreciate you so much, man. Godspeed. And thank everybody else for watching. Mr. Petway, it's in your hands.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder, everybody, please make sure that you are sharing these videos. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday leading up to the Bridge Crossing Jubilee. We got some more amazing people. I think every week I'm just in awe. Like every week somebody's just got me just And so once again, we thank you all so much for tuning in on tonight. Please make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram at Omega Chi 1957 and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Omega Chi 1957. We appreciate all of the support. Once again, thank you all so much. Dr. Hendricks, thank you so much for sharing some knowledge and for sharing in with us tonight. We appreciate you all so much again, and we're signing off. You all have an amazing evening.